And let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I wonder if I could ask for a volunteer to take minutes today until we hopefully get Amy, you'll do that. And while we're on the subject, we have any feelers for an intern?
We don't yet, but I have only sent out one note to the guidance counselors. I've only sent out one note to the guidance counselors. I have not yet started my official pestering campaign, so that will start next week.
All right, we'll pester away. Thank you for taking the minutes for today. Have people had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, are there any additions or corrections? Could I have a motion to accept them?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Our first announcement is that we do have a new Board of Health member, Dr. Louise Fitzpatrick. She's the Dean of the School of Nursing at Villanova University. I'm going to pat myself on the back here. When we were looking for, knowing that we needed another member, I sent out announcements to the colleges and universities in the area health programs to let them know that there was this opportunity available. And Dean Fitzpatrick responded. I mean, I never sort of even dreamed that we would get the actual Dean of the School of Nursing, so I'm very pleased about that. She is in, I guess, Lebanon? Is that right?
That's correct, Beirut,
Yeah.
Lebanon.
Right. So hopefully she will be here at future meetings. And I want to do a happy thing, which is I want to present to our last year's intern, Morgan Dumbra, Certificate of Appreciation. And for this, I would like to request that all the board members come down here so we can have a photo taken of the certificate presentation. And I will just say the certificate says, whereas Morgan Dumbra, during the 2013-2014 school year, unselfishly, it says selfishly, I'm going to change that, unselfishly dedicated her time to the Radnor community by serving as a student intern secretary to the Board of Health, and whereas the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Health, the Township manager, and the residents recognize and appreciate Morgan Dumbra's good works. And the fact that it will have a correction on it will only add to its value in future years.
And
So thank you so much.
And that misspelling was my fault. It was not the chairwoman's. I'll correct it.
Yeah.
No, she's not going.
And can you email us a picture of this as well? Or
Oh,
you
yeah,
can
yes,
email it?
I'll get the emails from Morgan. So I'm just trying to. So I just want to do one more. Okay, yeah, that's good, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you.
Say hi to everyone. Yeah, treat your messages. I don't know what you're going to do on Monday nights now.
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing.
So we'll move ahead to the health officer's report. Mr. Taltone?
Yes, I'm going to pretty much submit my report as submitted with a couple of highlights. First of all, I wanted to let you know that Mr. Kevin Kane could not make it due to illness. And I wanted to bring to your attention that we had in the township several cases of rabid raccoons, which we put out a couple of health alerts on. And just this past week, we had one fox. I'm sorry, not a fox, it was a bat in a student house. Wanted to bring your attention to the arrangements for John Miller, Officer John Miller. We suffered a loss here at the Township with Officer John Miller, whose funeral arrangements are as follows. Tonight, the viewing is from 6 to 9 p.m. at McCuslin, Garrity, and Marchesney Funeral Home at 343 Chester Pike in Glen Olden, PA. And tomorrow, the viewing is at Holy Cross Church from 9:30 to 10:45, with Mass to follow at 11 a.m. at the Holy Cross Church at 651 East Springfield Road, Springfield, PA. So that's my report. Leave it stand as read and submitted.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure that is in no way indicative of how incredibly busy your summer was, so thank you, and we do have the details in your report. Dr. Donato, did you want to add anything about the rabies situation, or you feel like it's pretty self-explanatory what's happening?
As far as rabies goes, we we help prepare a number of those specimens, and unfortunately, it is pretty rampant. It's definitely around, so just make sure everybody's vaccinating their pets, and please don't forget about doing that. Really saves a lot of heartache for everybody for the future.
Thank you. In regard to the death of Officer Miller, we have a letter that I'm hoping everybody here will sign, directed to the Superintendent of Police. It reads, please accept and extend to the Radnor Township Police Department officers and staff our deepest sympathies on the passing of Officer Robert John Miller last week. We know that in his 9 years with the Township Police Department, Officer Miller was a true public servant and touched many lives with his positive nature. As a Board of Health, his death increases our sense of urgency in helping address the serious public health issue of suicide. We extend our condolences to you as his colleagues and friends. So I'm going to pass this around, and if people could sign it. Sometimes I think really seeing signatures as opposed to just one signature actually communicates something, which is why I particularly wanted people to actually sign this. So I'll pass that. And so let's go ahead with old business. Dr. Foreman, did you want to just update us on the sort of latest on Roundup? We had some, over the summer, we had a little more information requested about Roundup, and there was that other study, I believe in India, was it? Yeah.
So just a couple of pieces of information. I think last year we discussed this at length on the board and reviewed some of the literature that was available at that time on glyphosate, which is also called Roundup, which is a herbicide. The conclusion I think that I came up with and the board had agreed to is that at the current time the information was that it was relatively safe. There were no indications from regulatory commissions that we should, as a township, change policies immediately. I think that our recommendation was that we should look into other methods for herbicides, other ways that we can sort of more naturally fight off the weeds in the township. Over the summer, a study did come out of, it was 2 places, I believe it was somewhere in Asia and in India area, and also from South America, or Central America, actually. And there was some evidence that it's possible that glyphosate, in conjunction with heavy metals, which is found in some of the soils in those particular areas, may be a contributing factor to chronic kidney disease, which was called CKD, I believe, of unknown origin for many years, because there were numbers of people who were farming in these communities who were getting kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, out of nowhere with no particular cause. Some of the studies have pointed to the fact that possibly the combination of those heavy metals in the soil and glyphosate is contributing to the chronic kidney failure in these individuals. It has not been replicated in any other communities around the world where glyphosate is used, and it may have to do with specific soil content and the specific amount of exposure that these farm workers have to it, where they're actually in rice paddies all day, holding and touching the soil and the herbicide mix. So from the point of view of its routine use, I don't think that it changed much as far as our recommendations or from the federal government's recommendations from the different bodies that regulate these things. Another township resident had expressed concern about glyphosate use in the township, and I think that you know, if more information is out there that I haven't been able to see, if there's more studies that have been done that need to be reviewed, I'm happy to continue on the path of you know, seeing the current evidence and current science and making a decision about whether or not we need to make some change or make recommendations for changes for the township.
I guess
you.
I'd like to add that I went online to check the Pesticide Information Center, which is done in conjunction with the EPA, and basically, word for word, it hasn't changed in the past 2 years. But we can still be vigilant, I think, at this point.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think just to sort of emphasize the fact that all things being equal, it would be great to use alternatives when possible, either in terms of overseeding with other plants, use of gravel, you know, other kinds of weed control. But anyway, thank you both for, and thank you to the board for reviewing the information over the summer. Appreciate that.
Madam Chairman, did I forward you Steve Norsini's response to the recent email we got? I don't remember. Okay, I'll send that to you. It's basically he's more directing the safety that we use for our personnel. Also, Commissioner Schaefer and I have requested that next year we do an experiment, if you will, and take some properties and use horticultural vinegar. The reason that we continued to use the glyphosate is because the manpower required for alternative means is so high. But if horticultural vinegar has been getting a lot of write-ups, especially in like the organic gardening magazines and things like that. So we figured it's worth a try. And if it's better, it's got to be better for our people. I don't know if you remember, but when we changed from pesticide herbicide treatment to organic products 15 years ago now, one of the dramatic effects we saw immediately was on the health of our employees. Even though that wasn't the reason we changed. But it was dramatic, especially with things like upper respiratory and skin rashes, things like that. So.
Terrific, thank you. And please do keep the board posted about that. That's excellent. So I think we'll move into new business. So Caitlin, you're first up. This is Caitlin Bersheim from the Delaware County Respite Association, is that correct?
Agency. Child and Family Focus.
Okay. And I will turn it over to you to talk about respite care services that are available and also opportunities and needs that your organization has.
Okay. So my name is Caitlin Bersheim, and I am the respite coordinator at Child and Family Focus. And currently, we are trying to recruit homes. So for who we are, we're Child and Family Focus. We started in 2001. We're a nonprofit faith-based agency. We have offices in Hatboro, Broomall, Kennett Square, and Valley Forge, and we serve children and youth with behavioral health needs in Berks, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montgomery counties. Respite, my specific program, means an interval of rest or relief. So we provide short-term temporary care to families who need relief from their daily challenges that come with the daily living of taking care of a child with mental health needs. So basically, anytime that a child's going through therapy, they hit this thing called an extinction burst. So it's when the child shows all of their behaviors like in a very high amount, and that's right when they're about to, because of all the change that's going on in the family, so that's right when they're about to like go back to like being okay. But it's a really stressful time for the family, and so that's when we step in and we put a provider into the home to create a separation between the child and the family so that they can have their own little time to do what they need to do. So when they go back into therapy, it's more beneficial. And the end goal is for the child to stay in the home and have therapy be beneficial for the family. So our mission for Respite is to improve the well-being of families for children and youth with mental health needs by providing them with a temporary purposeful period of relief from daily challenges. So who do we serve? We serve Bucks, Chester, and Delaware counties. We serve children ages 3 to 21 years old up until their 22nd birthday. The children must have a mental health diagnosis. They have to have at least one mental health service, so that's anything from services that Elwyn shows and Child Guidance Resource Center, any kind of service that will help with their therapies. Family has to have minimal child care support. So we serve children that have disabilities like ADHD, PTSD, anxiety disorder, mood disorder, adjustment disorder, bipolar, autism, Asperger's, and pervasive developmental disorder, which is just the catch-all for developmental disorders, to name a few. So we serve in-home and out-of-home respite. In-home respite is provided hourly in the child's home or in the community. So the respite provider, which we hire on, can take the child into the community or hang out in the child's home while the mom or dad or guardian just goes about and does anything that they need to do. Out-of-home respite, which is what I'm here to recruit for, the respite provider would open up their home and do either an hourly or an overnight basis. So what can we do to help? Well, we can have people open up their homes. To be approved to be a respite provider, you have to have your Pennsylvania child abuse clearance, your Pennsylvania state criminal record check, your FBI fingerprinting results, your child and infant CPR and first aid certifications, the completed physical and tuberculosis test results, an up-to-date and valid driver's license and car insurance for any car that is in the home, the homeowner's or renter's insurance, a water test result as long as they don't have public water, or if they don't have public water, and a fire safety letter from their local fire department. And as long as all of these check out, then we can move forward in approving their home to provide respite services. I didn't include it into the slides, but all of our providers are reimbursed $10 to $15 an hour for volunteering their time to open up their home for these children. It's mainly so that the kids can get out of the family's houses, so that it's much more of a relief than so that you have your home to yourself. You can have it overnight to yourself. We can't allow, if there's a provider that goes into the child's home, we can't allow that the provider stays overnight, because there has to be an extensive home study that's done for their home to make sure that it is safe, which is the home study. So if anybody wanted to apply, they can contact the coordinator that is assigned to their county for an application. For Delaware County, that is me, and this is my information. And then if anybody lived in Bucks County or Chester County, then they would contact the following people. We really need respite homes, because right now we don't have any, so our big mission right now is just to contact and try to reach out to the community for people to open up their homes. They do get reimbursed, and it's for a good cause, and if you love children, then it's a lot of fun. So we just ask you to lend your love, and that's about it. Thank you very much for your time.
Stay there for a second.
Yep.
Thank you. I was not aware of this resource, prior to you contacting me, so I'm very, very happy to know about it, and about the opportunity to help with it as well. Do people have any questions, comments?
Have you contacted the school districts?
We have. We've contacted the social workers that work in the school districts, and we contacted them for referral sources, so for more children, because it's a constant battle with balancing. We're struggling on how to get the word out that we need people to open up their homes is our big struggle right now.
I would recommend that maybe a PTA newsletter, that you get into those in all the school systems, even in some type of blurb article in the Suburban, something along those lines to let people know and be aware of what's going on, so that you hopefully could get some parents.
Yeah. We did reach out to, I forget the name of the magazine is, Special Kids. So we have an ad in there, and that's just a magazine that has a bunch of resources for children with special needs. And then we're distributing them into different doctor's offices and places that children with special needs might, and their families might go into. And so we did reach out to them, and we have like 3 ads in there. And then we're working on different ads for different for cities. So like their city paper that goes out or something. We've been working on that. It's just hard to reach out because we can get a lot of people that want to go into the child's home, but it's scary for people to open up their own homes. So that's what we're trying to be like. It's not as bad as you might think it is. These kids are really great. I've been working with them for 3 years, so I just need more homes.
I think those are great suggestions, Marianne. So in terms of the PTO newsletter and PTO meetings, I think those are really great suggestions. In terms of the doctors, another way to reach them would be through, and because I work at the PA chapter, American Academy of Pediatrics, and we can, we obviously have a list of all the members. So instead of you trying to personally reach each doctor's office, if you send what it is you would like listed to me, I can forward that to the head of the PA chapter AAP, and that could go out via email or in the e-news, depending on how it's worded. I mean, it's a statewide organization, so if you wanted it county-specific, then it would go to members in those counties. And similarly, so that would be the PA chapter American Academy of Pediatrics, and similarly, the PA chapter American Academy of Family Physicians would be 2 other entities to reach out to, saying, here's the information you want communicated, and this is the geographic area you want it gotten to.
Okay.
So,
thank you. I really appreciate that.
So, but I think the school nurses and the PTOs is an excellent suggestion, because PTOs are obviously people who are interested. That's already a self-selected group of people who are interested in helping. So.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking Mainline Health, the community outreach group there, they'd be another entity. They have a whole, and again, they would have a network of people who already know or interested in helping. Okay. So if I'll email you the head of that.
Thank you.
It's Gail Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, so she would be another great resource. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Before we get to you, Peter, I just want to bring up one thing, which is that I want to deal with this traffic issue. So when Amy... And this, I guess, relates. Larry, you didn't talk about the upcoming Radnor Fall Festival. Isn't that this weekend?
It is this weekend. I think it's down at the South Wayne Avenue, North Wayne Avenue. It's on the 21st, which is Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. I believe from noon to 5 are the hours. And if it's anything like it's been in the past, it's a great event. People should go out to enjoy it.
Yes, so this is another opportunity for Board of Health members to circulate and say, hi, I'm so-and-so from the Radnor Township Board of Health. There's running health issues you would like us to address. Think broadly about health, environment, physical activity, any kind of school health, any kind of health issue, and see what people say. So one of the issues that came up when Amy Leader and I did that similar type of thing at another event over the summer was that people mentioned a crosswalk between crossing, sort of the idea of connecting the Radnor walking trail with the friendly village of Wayne. So, and it was something that also struck a chord with us, saying, yes, that's something that we also have, just personally had experience with. And when I contacted the Traffic Safety Division, they said, well, that was right in line with something that they already have on the agenda for this coming Wednesday, and could we do a letter of support? So I did generate such a letter, which I did circulate to you, and it just basically says, Radnor Township Board of Health would like to communicate to the Traffic Safety Commission that I'm hoping it's unanimous, we unanimously support increasing the walkability of our township and thereby the public health by connecting the Radnor Walking Trail with Wayne via pedestrian-friendly crosswalks, lighting, signage, or other appropriate means across Conestoga Road and elsewhere as needed. Currently, it is hazardous to pedestrians, cars, strollers, bicycles, and others to try to cross busy Conestoga Road between the town of Wayne and the lovely Radnor Walking Trail. We have heard from residents that improving this connection is desirable, and we as a board heartily concur and have ourselves experienced the hazards of attempting this walk. We all wish to promote the walkability and healthfulness of our wonderful community, and this action would help achieve this goal. Thank you very much for your consideration of this request, and we will look for your response. And my plan is to actually go to this meeting Wednesday morning to present this letter and, communicate our support. So I'm wondering, do people have any comments, or are you willing to support this letter? Or I'll take a motion.
Okay, well, I move that we support this.
I'll second that. Okay. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, so I have myself as signing it, and I would like Dr. Foreman as our vice chair to sign it as well. And I will present it then to the Traffic Safety Commission. And this is. Thank you. And now our Greenways presentation. So Peter Simone, who is the head of landscape architecture, is that the name of your firm?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry. What is the name of your firm?
Hi, I'm Peter Simone with a firm called Simone Collins Landscape Architecture. And thank you for the opportunity to meet with you. We've been doing trails for over 24 years now. Our business, over 20 years. This is the first time I've presented to a Board of Health. We recently had one of our projects, the Pottstown Trail Project, that's an in-town trail project funded by the Pottstown Hospital Wellness Foundation. They funded that project to the tune of $580,000, which was matched by a state grant of $1 million. So it's gratifying to me, and coming to a community that sort of pioneered trails with the Radnor Trail several years ago, or a couple of decades ago, that this has come full circle, that when we started doing trails, it was, well, let's have a bake sale. And now we are attracting funding from hospitals and wellness foundations, really as they should be. So thank you for the opportunity to give you an overview. We've been working on this with a really engaged committee. Many of these folks you probably know, members of the township, former supervisors, et cetera, or commissioners, excuse me, for over the last several months. In addition to our firm as landscape architects and planners, traffic planning and design, who are traffic engineers, have been engaged in the project also. And it's been a interesting project, and one that I have to say we've had really no naysayers from the community. Everyone we've spoken to in Radnor is positive about the project. We've had a lot of discussions how we can do it better, which is always healthy, but it's been a very positive experience. You can see a list here of scope items, and I won't read them all, but the main one was to develop this township-wide greenway and trail network. We've been engaged in this project since October, so we're about a year through. The latest I heard today is we're going to go in front of the Board of Commissioners early next month to hopefully get approval of the plan. We've been through a long process, and we have one more meeting with our trail committee this Wednesday, 2 days from today, just to fine-tune the last parts of the trail plan, but also to think about implementation and being advocates for moving this trail project ahead. A lot of times, we and other planning firms will do master plans, and they sit on shelves, as the saying always goes. The critical thing about this, and our committee is talking about it, is how can this be kept in front of the commissioners with all the many priorities they have for funding and going after grants and things in the community. How can this be a high priority year after year through successive boards as they change? Because we're looking at this as a 20-year project. This is not something that's going to get built overnight. No community can afford to do that. So as one of the, I don't know how many health boards there are in townships. I don't know, you may be the only one. It's not too many. But as a health board, I hope you can be advocates for this project as it moves forward. Part of the study was to do a survey, an online survey of residents, and we asked some pretty basic questions. Are there enough trail facilities? And not surprisingly, most people answered no, there are not enough trail facilities in the community. Where do you go? What schools do you go to for recreation? Even though these aren't recreation sites officially, both the public schools and some of the institutions become de facto open space that people visit because they're beautiful campuses and take a walk. And what this tells us is these are places where we should try to connect with a trail system, certainly, because people like to go there. Do you walk, jog, or bicycle to any of the parks in the township presently? And again, majority of folks said yes. And again, that tells us there is a need for creating safe connections. Suburban parents and grandparents, we've all become used to ferrying our kids everywhere. That's really not an ideal situation, as you know, both for their health and for parents' sanity. So if we can provide safe connections for kids that they can take some initiative to walk or bike in some locations, that's certainly a good thing. How important are public parks, natural areas, and open spaces, and trails and greenways? So we asked, what are the relative importance of these things? And trails came out, and this is a self-selecting survey, so this isn't a statistically valid survey, but so folks who are interested in trails certainly probably participated in this. But I think the good takeaway here is 84% felt they were very important, which ranks up with public parks in general and open space and recreational facilities. So certainly you can reasonably say that trails are as important as any of your other recreational facilities. The added benefit, of course, is trails are not only, and greenways are not only recreational facilities, they are bona fide transportation facilities, which adds a whole nother level of importance to them as you look how to do them. And then, if we go back to the question, why are we doing this, and why are other communities across the country doing this? We have developed our suburbs as unhealthy places to live, not intentionally, but go to a mall and see seniors going to the mall to find a safe place to walk. It's sort of sad. That's the only place they can go to walk. We have an obesity crisis in this country. We have, and you know much better than I, we have very high prescription drug use for things just that maybe can partially be addressed through people being in nature. I'm sure some of you have read Richard Louve's Last Child in the Woods and his follow-up book, The Nature Principle. If you have not, I highly recommend those two books to you because they are the best books I've ever seen that connect the environment to health and pull together a lot of the information that's been developed over the last 20 years by CDC and other institutions about why these facilities are important. PennDOT now has a multimodal mandate for all their projects. As part of our work, we met with PennDOT, and they've been very cooperative and excited about what you're doing and suggested ways that we can help implement it, because you're going to see that many of the facilities in Radnor have to be on-road trails because those are the only opportunities that are available in some parts of the township. So in the 20-plus years that our firm has been doing this, and since you started the Radnor Trail with the help of PennDOT, if you recall, these facilities have gone from nice, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have a trail, that people now recognize that these are essential quality of life and health preventative elements to any community. So I think there's a mass consciousness that these facilities and these opportunities are very, very important to everyone's health and well-being. Nationally, and these numbers are a few years old, just rail trails. Trails that are on former rail beds. You can see there are over 21,000 miles of trails nationwide, with another 7,500 planned. Pennsylvania alone has 1,600 rail trails and many more miles of trails that are not on old rail beds. So this is not a fad. This is something that's here to stay. If you've driven the expressway recently, you've seen the work in the Schuylkill River, where the city of Philadelphia is spending millions of dollars, which they went out and got from other sources. A lot of it's federal money to build that Schuylkill River trail extension in the river. So it's something that's here to stay. Every several years, the state of Pennsylvania does a recreation plan. And in the 2009 plan, trails were shown to be the #1 most wanted recreational facility. Walking, #1 most popular outdoor activity, and cycling is very, very high on that list. So everywhere we go, and we work with many municipalities, trails and greenways are always, and walkability is always very, very high on the wish list. I mentioned the CDC. I'm sure you're very familiar with their Healthy Communities program. They were pioneers in this work probably about 20 years ago at least, and now you really can't go too many places without seeing their work about healthy communities. Another very important organization that has adopted building healthy places as their #1 initiative is the Urban Land Institute. The Urban Land Institute is not a bunch of academics. They are developers primarily. And the development community has now realized that building healthy communities, and if you look for their publications, you see trails all over the place with their publications. So the wellness foundations have grown in recent years. William Penn Foundation, and I'll show you, they have a priority with a system called the Circuit, where they want to implement a circuit of trails through the Philadelphia region of 750 miles of trail. The local food movement plays into this. So there are many, many things that have happened in the last 10 or 15 years that speak to the importance of these facilities. Trails 101, very briefly, there are advanced cyclists, the guys and gals in spandex who really don't care about cars and they go anywhere. And we have the basic cyclists, which is the biggest group. And these are folks who will ride on a road, but they'd rather be on an off-road situation like the Radnor Trail or the Schuylkill River Trail, or if you've been on the Chester County Trail, which opened last couple of years, which is very nice. And then Group C is a child cyclist, a young kid who really should not be on a road, off-road situation only. So those are the three major groups. We provide for all of them in this study, and certainly there are places with the proposed trails that you wouldn't want a child cyclist. So it's not meant every trail handles everyone. And the pathways have different classifications. Class 1 is a completely separated trail like the Radnor Trail. Class 2 is a designated bike lane, and you see tons of them now in the city of Philadelphia where they have the green pathways or arrows or things like that. And then the third is a bike route that doesn't have a lane per se, but it might have the old share the road sign, which is now being replaced by use the full lane sign, which is the new sign from PennDOT, because 2 years ago the state passed a law that as motorists we have to give cyclists a 4-foot clear area as we go past them. So state law is changing also to recognize the importance of cycling. I mentioned the circuit, and you can see from this map, the regional map, and you see Radnor there sort of in the left center. The green routes are existing trails, the dotted blue are major planned, and then others that are recommended for funding. So you can see Radnor's in a really good position to take advantage of these regional connections. And in the trail plan, we've noted where Radnor can connect to some of the adjoining municipalities. I should also mention that we're doing this study, but there's also a companion study that's happening in the township called the Refuge or Forge to Refuge Trail, meaning the Valley Forge to the John Hines Wildlife Refuge Trail. That study is being done by Campbell Thomas, who's the firm that's worked on the Radnor Trail originally, and they're looking at connecting Radnor all the way down through Haverford Township down to the south to Philadelphia to the 69th Street area, or really 63rd Street, I guess it is. So, and that's also a study that's, I should mention, our study's funded by DCNR, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, as is this other study. So that's also happening a little bit after ours. They're about halfway through. If we look at the map of the township, which you're familiar with, you've got you've got 23 parks that cover over 400 acres. You've got the school district parcels. You've got other institutions which are certainly major landholders. You've got golf courses. You have a lot of homeowners association lands and PennDOT lands, and that's the color comes off as sort of a dark green. We've not suggested going into homeowners association lands because that's always a little bit of a controversial subject. These are private recreational lands, but we've made it known through the study, and I think as more trails get built, that the township will get approached by homeowners to say, we would like to connect in, which is something you see happening over and over in communities. We have conservation easements, you've got commercial and retail destinations, and you also have major employment centers in the township. So you've got all the ingredients, and you've got, 9 mass transit stations, which is a huge opportunity, because SEPTA has, you can bring your bike on a SEPTA rail line on off-peak hours. It extends your visit, and you have some things that people want to come to in Radnor. Chanticleer, the universities, the Wayne Business District, et cetera, et cetera. So having mass transit's a huge opportunity. The proposed trail system, and I'm just going to hit the highlights, is you can see it represented here with the various lines. We have existing trails and then proposed trails, both off-road and on-road. And then we also have a priority loop system, which I'm going to go over a little bit with you. And the first priority, strangely enough, is the Village of Wayne to Radnor Trail connection. We recognize that this is a very important route, the same one you just spoke about. And you'll see some numbers later, but this is a route that we think could be accomplished relatively inexpensively to improve it. It includes a safe crossing of Conestoga into the park that's on Conestoga that connects to the Radnor Greenway, the Radnor Trail. I'm drawing a blank on the park name right now. Yeah, thanks. But it's also the preserve, actually. The preserve, the West Wayne Preserve, thank you. Going through that. So that's one of the initial links that we're suggesting. Also, South Radnor Road is a small segment that's also an important connection. There's a great complex of trails sort of northeast of Lancaster Ave that parallel the Blue Route that go through some undeveloped tracks, leftover tracks from that construction. that will be a series of off-road trails where you're not going to be worrying about vehicles at all, and we think are going to be really important connections. In addition to, if redevelopment happens in the biomed site, which is being talked about, these can provide better connections for commuting through those areas. There's an important section along Lancaster Pike that goes along Villanova's front yard there, where their big lawn is, which could be easily accommodated. I should mention that during the process we had 3 focus groups. One of the focus groups were for township institutions and schools. Villanova was a participant in that, and I think as this moves forward, certainly their students and the students of other institutions can benefit greatly from having this system in place, so they can have other modes of transportation besides automobiles. There's a great route along Ithan Ave, and then when you make the connection south, it becomes a very sort of lightly traveled road, and we've also shown a hiking trail in connection with this bike route that goes down Ithan. Along Bryn Mawr Avenue, there's a section. This is already heavily used by cyclists. It's a fast road, it's a narrow road, but it's a very heavily used. Working with PennDOT, we've come up with a shoulder lane configuration where we're trying to get an 11-foot lane with a 3-foot shoulder. And they're very comfortable with that. That meets their safety standards in terms of a share the road situation. That's the minimum we're shooting for. Some of your roads will be able to accommodate that. We do have pinch points where we're going to have to go around, let's say, an old historic bridge with a new pedestrian bridge to make that connection safe. But we've tried to be very careful with all these routes that they are feasible. Keep in mind that this master plan is a concept. We have gone out in many instances, especially some of these tight roads, and measured the cartway widths and estimated the right-of-way widths. You know, because you never know where the cartway is within the right-of-way, where the paving sits within the right-of-way. But based on our experience, we can make a pretty good guess. When you get to the engineering stage, you have to get surveys that locates all the trees and all the poles, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the first step in that process. When you go to construction, you'll get more detailed information. Darby-Paoli Road is another important segment. And then Church Road and Brook Road, again, very challenging segment. We see this as a connection to Chanticleer through the backside. We think that's something that hopefully they will become excited about as a way to get visitors to their facility who don't always have to drive there. We have also put feelers out with SEPTA for their Norristown line that goes through the township. For a while, SEPTA was looking at a second line here based upon the extension of the R100, which used to be called the R100, to King of Prussia. They wanted to preserve this extra width. Then they came in with new power line towers, which sort of made that not a reality. So our colleagues who are doing the other study are engaged with SEPTA because of the timing more intimately, and they're exploring this. This is in the plan as a desired connection. This will probably take some time, but it's a good reality. It's a good possibility. And of course, the other thing that it does, it makes these connections to these high-speed rail stations along the way, which again is an enhancement for a trail system. Right now, you have about 8 miles of trails within the township. The proposed system is 28 miles, which would give you a total mileage of 36 miles throughout the township. And I've obviously just hit some of the high points. Our estimated costs for the overall system is about $9.5 million. The loop system, which is the heavy lines, are about 5.3. This is why I said this is a multi-year project. It's not going to be done all in one fell swoop. What we've tried to do is prioritize these connections, and we've developed a suggested list of priorities. The Wayne to Radnor connection is our first priority for all the reasons you're aware of already, and you can go down the list here. Depending on funding, and the township has historically done a pretty good job of getting funding from various sources. I'll go over that list in a minute. So the implementation of this system will depend on the township's ability to go out and sell this to the various funding agencies and to attract taxpayer money to come here rather than go to other communities. I mean, recently you're certainly aware of the township getting $1 million to help purchase open space at the Androssan site. So it's that process. The good news is Pennsylvania is a very good place for getting funding, which I'll talk about in a second. Another thing that we documented were the streams and wooded areas that make up, let's say, part of the greenway system. And there aren't any uniform standards for management of these areas. You recently enacted a stormwater tax that as a homeowner or a business you're impacted because the township has some unfunded mandates from DEP in terms of your MS4 plan and enhancing water quality. Well, another part of that, and it could relate to the discussion you had about what kinds of pesticides to use or herbicides to use or not use, is how you manage your greenway. So we're suggesting a buffer area along your streams, and this would be an educational process. It's not something that we're recommending be dictated via an ordinance because I think it would be unworkable, but to start to educate the public or to continue to educate the public about the importance of, for example, not mowing right up to a stream, leaving a vegetated buffer, even if it's just meadow grass, so that as water goes towards the stream surface, as a surface flow, the vegetation has time to slow the velocity down, to get the water into the soil, to cleanse it through a natural process. And this can have a great positive effect on water quality in the township. And it's not only for the people who might still have wells, it's for the health and well-being of the whole ecosystem. So it's a small recommendation, but an important one that's part of our study. The draft plan is online. We went through a public review. We've made a number of changes. You can see how the whole township is covered, and there are many, I guess, 12 detailed maps that go in. They're based on GIS aerials that are a few years old, so it's fairly detailed and pretty complete information. The report goes through the whole process and data collection and meeting process. And the costs are set up like a Chinese menu. Because this is a multi-year project, you might develop a piece of trail here, and we've broken them down into sort of bite-sized bits so that over the years you're not guessing how did they come up with the cost. You can go back and look in small pieces. So as you go after funding, you can break those requests down. The sources I mentioned, DCNR is the biggest one. The Transportation Alternative Program, fortunately the state passed a transportation bill this year. The $1 million we were able to help get Pottstown came from that fund, that TAP funding, which I mentioned was matched by the Pottstown Wellness Foundation. The DVRPC has funds available through various programs. The Commonwealth Finance Agency just had a grant round for greenways, trails, and recreation. They also have a multimodal transportation fund, which you would qualify for. Safe routes to schools. If our federal legislators ever reauthorize the federal transportation bill to any extent, there's going to be more money available for trails. And many of the trails that are built in the Philadelphia region today are a result of federal funding that was available. PennVest is an organization, Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority, that is mainly concerned with stormwater quality, and we've been successful in getting funds from that agency for park projects where you match the park money with the water quality enhancement money. You can do the same thing with trails. So there are lots of opportunities, and I just put in hospitals via wellness foundations. So I mentioned we have our final committee meeting Wednesday night. The Board of Commissioners, I was just informed today, is going to be moved to October. And so, you know, I hope that, that this board is excited about the project. We certainly are, and I think it's a great opportunity to really enhance opportunities for physical recreation and better health in the community. So I hope it's something that as the months and years go by, you can continue to be involved with and be advocates for. So I really appreciate your time. I can try to answer questions, and I mentioned the website is out there. The township has been very good, I think, in trying to publicize this. We've had many meetings, and encourage you to take a closer look at the study and offer some comment. We probably won't finalize this until after the commissioners' meeting in case they want to make some tweaks to it. So there's still a little bit of a window, certainly.
Thank you very much, and thank you, John Nagel, for bringing this, speaker to our meeting. Questions, comments?
I have a question. I live on Conestoga Road, right by one of the trail entrance parking lots. And again, on Saturday morning, we had another cyclist, what you would, I think, call the Class A, or that top cyclist, was hit by a car and was seriously injured. And this happens all the time with these extremely moving high, fast speed cyclists. And it seems to me, when you were talking about these trails, that you were appealing to all these different levels of cyclists. But the more and more of those cyclists that I see hit and seriously injured, Radnor just doesn't seem to be the place to be doing that kind of cycling with the kind of volume we have on our streets. I just, if anything, from what I see, I would discourage those cyclists. I'm all for physical activity and cycling, but you go another 20 miles out and you're into the countryside, and it just seems so much safer.
I have to agree. I cringe. I live off Primrose Avenue, and I see people jogging down Primrose Avenue and riding bikes, which I think is extremely dangerous. I can't imagine, somebody being hit. It hasn't happened, but
I can tell you it happens all the time on Conestoga Road.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give you a satisfactory answer for that. I'm sure there are accidents and people injured on the Radnor Trail also, just like there are people injured on West River Drive in Philadelphia when there's no cars out there. And, the times I've fallen over my own feet and, broken something. There's always risk involved. And I think in looking at a system like this, if you look at and this is a little bit of a divergence, but bear with me a second. If you go to national parks and you look at walkways through hot geyser fields, there's a philosophy that says we want people to experience this beautiful natural wonder, and we're not going to put these huge railings next to the walkway because people have to recognize what's safe and not safe. And if you're a 3-year-old child, hopefully you have a parent that has your hand. The same can be said for any type of recreational facilities or transportation facilities. Probably, and I'll use myself as an example, I become a different person when I'm behind the wheel of a vehicle as opposed to when I'm on a bicycle. And I will say it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm a much nicer person on a bike than when I am behind a vehicle. So my guess is, and I don't have statistics to bear this out, that most bicycle vehicular accidents are often caused by the motorist. And that's why Pennsylvania just passed a law saying if you're going by a cyclist, you have to give that cyclist 4 feet. Are there going to be accidents on the system? Of course. Is part of the challenge here for the township and all communities to try to educate motorists to be more responsible? I'd say yes. I mean, that's, since I've been riding a bike, which has been way too many years, I've noticed that motorists are better than they used to be. I mean, I used to get ridden off roads by screaming, angry motorists. And if you're as old as I am, you may have had that experience too. That doesn't happen anymore. The accidents that happen are accidents. They're not specific harassments. And that used to happen a lot. So
I feel
my vision is that, let me just finish, that perceptions have changed. It's becoming safer. I'm sure you're correct, there are lots of accidents, but when these facilities are designed, they have to be designed to PennDOT standards, AASHTO standards, et cetera, and that's the best we can do. We can't totally change human behavior and make it totally safe.
But I feel like, I appreciate the point you're making, and I think, though, that one of the things that we're saying is and I think a sort of basic public health principle also, though, is to the extent that you can't change and educate each individual person, what you want to do is have a designed and built environment that makes the activity as safe as possible. So obviously, to the extent where you can have distinct, as they do in the Netherlands, roads, walking, biking, 3 actual separate pathways, of course, that's optimal. But secondly, just to be aware of how the materials are being promoted and the marketing, so that we're not, I think it's an excellent point, that we're not promoting this as, this is like a freestanding cycling pathway. If it really is a multi-use trail that's not designed for speeds over X amount of miles per hour. So I just hope that you do, take that into consideration.
Yeah, and keep in mind that cyclists are allowed on any road unless it's a limited access highway. So, I mean, they have as much right to be there as the motorist. That's state law. And it's the law in most
Yeah.
states. So all I'm saying is what we're trying to do is by having narrower vehicular lanes in some cases and a wider shoulder as the most basic on-road system with signage, we're trying to make that cycling use safer. It's not foolproof.
Yeah, I think that's the key, trying to make it safer. And I don't think we want to promote massive amounts of cycling unless the cyclists are also educated as well. I mean, a Saturday morning on Conestoga Road looks like Tour de France training. And it's Radnor. So the bicyclists need to also be educated as well.
Yeah,
or we're going to keep seeing this.
And I think Radnor, too, is a community that attracts young adults, I'll say, or older adults, who have discretionary money and time to engage in that activity. And those are the kinds of folks that my guess is you want to attract, or part of the subset you want to attract to Radnor. It's interesting, there's a program now that cyclists use, this program where you can track, they go out and do their loops and you can track where you go, and now that information is available. And some of the routes I showed you, especially Darby-Paoli Road and some of the others, they're very, as you know, they're very heavily used already by cyclists. And they're going to be, and nothing we're going to do, we can't prevent that from happening. All we're trying to do is make it safer. Education, yeah, goes across the board, and there are lots of crazy cyclists and pedestrians for that matter, too.
I mean, Conestoga Road is especially dangerous, especially because a lot of times the growth goes right up to the edge of the road. And having walked at times on Conestoga Road to get from someplace to someplace else where there's no other way to walk, the fact there is no sidewalk, along most of it is. And the Traffic Safety Committee, who I've spoken with about this, is certainly aware of that issue on Conestoga Road.
And I'm sure as
anyway,
this goes forward,
yeah.
as each section gets engineered, you will, and the township will have the same discussion, like, is this really safe enough to happen? And I know in the PennDOT roads, they are meticulous with safety, and I'm sure, having worked with Radnor Township in your engineering department, the engineers, that's their main training, safety. So that's going to always be the #1 concern as this gets hopefully built over time.
Other comments or points when you think about your own experience trying to get around the township?
I just wanted to ask about, we're Board of Health, so we also are engaged in safety issues too. You talked about limited access roads where the law would not really apply. What about the old railroad bed that has limited access posts all over the place? That's usually given over to, children and adults walking along there with headsets, and you're going to have a Tour de France running down that in the middle? That's a real concern, I think, that many of us have. There will have to be restricted segments of the trail, it seems, unless you have a parallel trail that's opened up for cyclists.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the regular PennDOT highways. I'm talking about these old railroad beds that have been converted into trails.
Yeah, well, that's you're talking about the Radnor Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the Radnor Trail, my experience has been most cyclists respect that it's a family trail. I mean, if they're at noon there on a Saturday, well, okay. But maybe they're not. Maybe that's an enforcement issue. That's an enforcement issue. And so if your feeling is the existing Radnor Trail as an off-road trail is unsafe, you have 2 options. You either don't go there, or you ask the township to enforce safety regulations. We had a situation like that in Forbidden Trail in the Wissahickon in Philadelphia, where we put up speed limit signs, just because we needed people to inform people.
I think especially because now it's really a relatively short thing, so in a way it's not that inviting to bicyclists. But I think as it becomes extended and becomes a real connection, it's going to be more attractive to cyclists. But
I mean, if you've cycled on the Schuylkill River Trail or the Perkiomen Trail or the Chester Valley Trail, I mean, my experience has been once in a while you get somebody going a little bit too fast, but most of the times that I ride those trails is on the weekend, and my experience has been, especially with family groups, that most people are respectful for of those groups. Again, are there accidents? Certainly. In terms of accidents per user group, I suspect those numbers are quite low, very low actually. So again, we're advocates for trails. I mean, one of the reasons we do this work is because we are. And if there are problems on any system, just like problems on a roadway, sometimes that calls for enforcement. All these trails would be developed to nationally accepted standards.
thank you. I think if it's okay with people, I might put the remaining items on the next agenda. Would that be all right with people, since we're a little over? And I know sometimes people have places to go, people to see.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Mr. Nagel, for making this possible. I'm just going to put a plug in for people getting their influenza vaccine. Most physicians have it by now, and so I'll just remind people, safe and effective, same strains as last year or in this year's. I get, the reason I want to put the other two items because I feel like they're really discussion items, and I'd rather have the time to really discuss them. So they will be first on next month's agenda. Any other final announcements? Then I declare the September 15th, 2014 Radnor Board of Health meeting adjourned. Thank you all.